This is another piece that I'm going to demonstrate for the purpose of the carving. This is an easy, it's like, I don't need to say easy, but it's a, it's a stable form for me to demonstrate because I'm not about to lop off some aspect of it. And so I sort of prepared aspects of that. So this piece I drew last night and I took it home and babysat it until it got. That, by that I mean I wake up every hour all night and look at it and say, are you okay or do you need to be covered? This piece though, I haven't looked at the bottom of it. And even though I can't really alter, I can't really cut these pieces down too much because I've altered them a lot, I still want a nice foot on the bottom. So it's just a matter of trimming them in a chopper. I really don't care what this bottom is doing. It's going to not be on center because I've altered the piece so it can be wobbling around. I'm just concerned with getting this. We're going to pretend that that's centered on the top. If I'm trimming something too wet, it sometimes grabs. This is a nice little tool to have. I know it's meant to be a handle pulling tool. That's what I've been told. I was telling these guys when I came through in August what tools I used, and I said, and I like this nice little trimming tool. This is a tool I use all the time, and they look at each other. Hate to inform you, but that's a handle pulling tool. Well, I still like it for trimming. It's a good thing I didn't learn that 20 years ago when I picked it up as a trimming tool. You know, so I flip it. You know, after I put I can go ahead. You saw I pulled a little today off there. I can. This is not totally leather hard. It's on the soft side of leather hard, sort of like where I want to work with it. Did I show you? Did you guys see where this is? You did because you just saw that one that I just carved.
That shape right there, is that like a 5?
Yes, it's a 5. Okay. Very good. I'm impressed. So I do switch out these. I do switch out these X-Acto blades on a pretty regular basis. These blades I get online, they're hobby blades. I think they last a little longer than the X-Acto blade. Last blade. they last a little longer, and I can get these. We used to go to a hardware store, and the hardware store stopped carrying them. We couldn't find them until my husband finally found them on Amazon. Figure. Here's these blades. They come in a box like this. There's 100 of them in here. They don't last as long as you might think. A piece of, a piece will take me off in 2 or 3 blades. If I feel like it's, I don't want much resistance while I'm carving it. And the sharper the blade, the less resistance you get. Okay. So, this piece really holds no surprises in the sense that there is a piece that is behind you over there that I did yesterday because because I'm trying to do about the same demonstration for everybody. So that was there. So that piece, what I did with that piece was to try and show you all the different steps. I didn't carve the whole thing out. Did this go around? Okay, so I mean you see what a piece looks like. You go through the whole round. With this, I will go ahead and lay in the longitude lines.
I have a question.
Yes?
This is such a delicate process and labor to do, and you spend all this time mastering it. Where you are right now, what's your success rate?
It's pretty good. I think it's probably about the same as most potters. I'll lose a piece from time to time, but the way I've always had to make a living with the porcelain, and it's evolved really slowly as to where it is now. And then I can't have a lot of failure rate, so I try to push the edge of where I'm comfortable with being at any given point. It would be boring if I wasn't constantly pushing at that edge, but I don't ever really, or I do from time to time, but rarely do I just jump out off some unknown precipice of understanding, because then I'd have a whole lose kiln that I couldn't live, couldn't make a living. It looks worse than it is. Like if I was a different potter, I would be, maybe I'd be pushing the envelope of what I was doing in my glaze work or something, and I would still have certain success rates or failures. I think we do in whatever endeavor, some, but not so bad. So, just start cutting I'm cutting the negative space, aren't I? That which I am cutting out is going to become negative space. I'm trying to bevel these cuts a bit so that when I come to take them out, they'll come out easily enough. You notice that I'm not taking these pieces out? That's a very important thing, because if I was taking the pieces out, then I would be creating edges where the air would get in more, and I would be creating a situation of uneven drying. So not only would I weaken the piece by taking them out because I'm not having anything to support the lattice that I'm creating, but the pieces would actually crack on their own because of the uneven drying from what has been taken away and what's still remaining there. Because obviously, where it's open and drying faster, it's going to be shrinking more.
Jennifer, can you rehydrate porcelain?
Yes, I can I do recycle my porcelain now. Not only the miller though, because I do that because I have this tug mill now. I never did recycle my clay, which always was a source of shame and sadness for me.
But I mean, as far as like if you're in a piece and it's gotten too dry,
Oh, that.
have you ever, or is it just too susceptible to crack again?
Yeah, my spritzer is not my best friend. It just, that's the problem. You spray the surface of a thing, and it then becomes uneven, more wet on the outside than the inside. And if I'm partway through a piece and I would do that, I would pretty much get instant cracking.
Okay.
So you come there and sit in your steaming bathroom and
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I can't. I have a friend, Sandy Byers, who does that. She has a damp room. She works with the Southern Ice and does those beautiful miniature little pinch pots, and these are really translucent. And she literally works in damp room all the time. And because she needs to slow down her drying time. But her work's a lot different. For me, I'm not just using the time. I'm actually using the whole continuum of leather hard. If you think about it, from plastic, where we throw, to greenware, where we have no physical water left in that clay, that is a continuum. That is a curved line, very curved. And with this, I am using not just one aspect, but the whole continuum. I'm doing this carving now because I cut all the way through, and this, cutting that much all the way through is more resistance. So it's softer. So I do all of these cuts that require the most resistance when it's soft. After I take these pieces out and they are drying, I'll be making little cuts that require less resistance. But once I open it up, I want that thing to be drying. Because if it's not continuing to go on that path towards dryness, toward more strength, because I've taken away so much, it's going to start cracking. It's tricky, I know. It is tricky.
I have two questions.
Okay.
What is the shrinkage on this clay? And also, is it because it looks to me like what you're leaving behind is a pretty standard width? So like, how do things shrink? Do you know what I mean? Like if you've got spine kind of going down the middle and it's whatever, an eighth of an inch, and then you've got these little feather things coming out, an eighth of an inch, and all the shrinkage that's taking place on each of those, as opposed to whether the spine was like an inch, and then the little feather things were an eighth of an inch. Do you know where I'm going?
I hear you. I was listening to you, and I messed up my pattern.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
It must be
such
good.
I'm just broken hearted. It's just funny. I'm just sitting here and I'm stopping listening to you for a second saying, my kid's here. This is weird. It's okay. Because I was listening to your words and you were talking about things being even. I'm thinking, yeah. And I'm thinking, oh, but this isn't.
I just wonder about that thing where things are pulling apart from each other.
Yes, that's exactly true. When I'm thinking about what patterns that I'm creating, I'm conscious of the fact that the tessellation, so to speak, that I'm creating work together to have a sense of whole that doesn't create necessarily strength, isn't taking away, but that there's something about the pattern that's actually adding strength. The tessellation, for instance, of a honeybee, where you've got those two-sided and then they all go together. That's a really strong form, and now they use cardboard and all of that. And so, you know, that's something to bear in mind in your patterning, that you think about how that's going to all go together structurally. It's good. It's true. So, yeah. I've seen people who will just cut out a few pieces and then go with it. Now, I just did that egg. And that's a pretty strong form, and it's also a pretty thick form. So it's nothing cracked on that, but when I'm throwing thinner and more open form, I'm going to get into trouble if I try to do something like that. It would, all of this stuff is, you're going to have to try stuff out. Try it on for yourself.
I have, and I've had problems, and that's why I'm looking at what you're doing, and it looks to me like in that form, what you're leaving behind, the thicknesses are very similar. Do you
Yeah,
think?
yes, that's right. I think that makes a difference. And I may do a different pattern, but it still does have that aspect in it. I shouldn't put that on you because I actually think I messed up before you started asking questions.
Well, that's all right, because I'm going to put it on you, but that's my pot now.
I'm sort of working at the top of this first. If I was working with a form that was a little less forgiving, I would do this sort of as a course of action, because even though I'm not pulling out the pieces, I'm still creating a certain sense of stress within the
Have a specific way to take out the pieces?
I'll just flick them out when I'm done here. I should have left the whole, when I was making that egg that you see over there, I was making it for the studio here to have as a model, and I was specifically leaving parts. And I wanted to do this with this one, but I sort of forgot, but I'm remembering now. I'm going to do it. I'm going to start now. Go into it. I'm not cutting away the whole ground because of time constraints, but I'm cutting away enough to be able to give you a sense of the various steps. But suffice to say, I'm in my studio. I just do this until I just cut like this until the whole ground is covered. I've cut away all of it. Before I do anything else, I do this. The egg in the back of the room, if you see it, I've left a couple of these rows that have no carving at all. Then I went ahead and carved them through. Then I'm not passing that around because I sort of think it's really fragile, a little too fragile to pass around. But I'll pass this one around because, the leather part is a little less fragile than greenware in terms of that sort of thing. I say understand that? I mean, it sounds, I'm telling you that, oh, that this work is softer when it's leather hard, and all of that's true, and it won't hold up. And yet we do know about greenware that it has that brittle fragility that is, so it's a funny thing, even though it's more fragile in the brittle sense, in the sense of holding the stress of edges that will hold the piece up, it is less likely to crack.
And at what point do you knock out those cut pieces?
What point do I not have to spend what?
The little pieces you're cutting out, what time do you let you start taking them out?
The time that I start taking the little pieces out is after every bit of this has been cut through. All the whole egg, cut all the way through.
So you don't let it dry like that at all?
Well, it's drying like that right now.
Well,
as
I
we
mean, you don't
speak.
set it aside and then the next day?
Never, because I need all that time. It's like I don't answer my telephone. When my kids were little, they would know that if I was carving a piece, that they would have to wait for whatever crisis was occurring for me to respond in any way at all. But I always would come from my studio, you know, when they were home from school or whatever, and in between pieces, and I'd say, okay, I'm done. Anybody need anything? What's going on? And I'd take care of whatever it was, or maybe they didn't need anything. I'd say, okay, I'm going back, I'm carving. They would know that they're not going to bother me for another, whenever time it takes to get that.
Did you put a bucket over it though? Did you add like?
Well, yeah, I have covered them with plastic if I've had to, but I'm switching because I know it's only partially helping. Because first of all, you know, for 20 minutes or something, okay, it's still continuing to dry. Evaporation always occurs, whether it's under a bag or not, right? The water continues to move from the outside to the inside. But before, I'll continue with that lecture if you're interested, but right now we're going to pretend that I've cut it all out. I've cut most of it out, but we're,
Are you just cutting like one side of that pattern, or are you cutting through both sides of it?
I'm cutting through, I've cut both sides. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm leaving this. I could cut this all the way out, but the reason I'm leaving this is for the source of having the model, so there's like little differences here. Or for the sake of the model, excuse me. So now I'm going to start taking out these pieces.
So maybe not cut all the way through?
No, I try to not quite cut all the way through at a certain point. If the pieces, I could cut all the way through with this one because this is really on the soft side of leather hard, so it's easy to cut out. But if the pieces are in danger of falling out because they're a little too dry, I will actually leave a little bit here and then have to come and clean that up later. Because it's really detrimental for the pieces to come out before they're supposed to because of that drying time. But anyway, you see, they just come out. I grab them, let them out.
Okay, so you did cut all the way through, you just left it in this space.
Yeah, you see that little bit, I don't know, can you see there's this little bit right here where I've torn it? That's a bit that I've left. And because I haven't quite cut all the way through, it's holding it in place. I am going to have to come in the back and address that later, but it's still better to have to do that than it is to have the pieces fall out.
And once you get those out, can you wrap that and let it dry slow, or you just stick it on the shelf and let it dry?
I pretty much stick it on the shelf and let it dry. Now, I will never totally wrap up a piece because it wants to continue to dry. There are some drying strategies for some pieces, like this type of piece there. I will sort of put them in a loose bag, and leave that bag open so that the inside is drying slightly faster than the outside. That seems to help not get cracks on the bottoms.
What part of the country do you live in?
I live on Martha's Vineyard. It's an island off Cape Cod.
So I live in an area that has like 10% humidity. So
Ah.
it's still not bagging.
Well, if I lived in Arizona or something, I think I might tend to always cover a piece with towel or a piece of sheet or something. You can certainly do that to slow down the drying, but you want to avoid a situation where that evaporation, which continues to happen, gets on the outside of your plastic and then starts wetting the surface of your piece. That's definitely going to cause you difficulties. So if you feel you have to do that, at least put some sort of barrier in between plastic and your piece.
Supposed to or sold for galleries?
Actually, I'd say possibly it's about 50% galleries and 50% I still do about a dozen art shows a year, and I do that myself. Yeah.
How difficult is it to smooth down that inside edge of each post? And then you go through the sanding process to get to the outside, it's hard to leave the inside.
It is hard. I sort of create tools sometimes. I take skewers and like barbecue skewers, and I'll tape little pieces of sponge onto them, stuff like that. We're not having too much time, so I'm just going to go through here. Like, we're going to pretend this whole thing's pulled away, but then I will, to continue that piece, I will bevel these pieces. And you see, these cuts are taking less resistance, so it's a good time to do these cuts after. I generally will go ahead and cut all of the hills, so the top part of the pieces first, because it wants to be softer. It cut these curves. You see how I'm creating these bevels? That's visible. Is that to help avoid cracking? No, I don't think that it would help avoid cracking, but I'll tell you, it's for aesthetic reasons. I'm wanting to follow that line. It'll make, it makes it more graceful. Follow that whole thing. So let's say I've done all of the top parts throughout the whole thing. After I've done the whole ground that way, I'll come back again and I'll do the valley part. See, cut that. I do that last because this piece is really wet still, a little wetter than I might look at. I wouldn't normally quite carve on it this wet, but If it was drier, it would, by the time I got through the whole round of this, which of course is a lot longer than we worked together for, this whole piece is pretty dry, but I can still make these little hatch marks on fairly dry clay. The clay can be almost completely dry, and I can still make these cuts without causing cracking.
Jennifer, so you know this is a closed form, is there any special wiring that you do to help this piece or not?
No. I might, if this was like a really open egg, and I like to make eggs, I think they're full form, and some of the forms are more open on the bottom. And in that case, I will fire that piece of the chuck with the tail wool, just to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. Why not? I don't need to risk that. Just sort of to
Does the tail roll leave marks?
oh, good. That's a good question. No, the tail wool does not leave marks, but it's going to be stuck all over your piece. And you have to come back with your mask on and just sand that off with sandpaper. I'll show you what I use. Well, you know that if you find it in, it's a sanding material with a little bit of foam backing on it that you use. You find it in the hardware stores in the paint. What's
No, it's not, there's a sandpaper paint splatter.
I've got a piece of it somewhere. I'm going to show you this time. I'm just stubbornly wanting to do just 3 more cuts. Okay, so well, anyway, so you can sort of imagine how this whole thing goes. You can pass this around.